My husband has a loyal and capable female director by his side. From her youthful prime to her 30s, she has accompanied Julian Zhu in conquering the business world, remaining unmarried to this day. Meanwhile, I've long been at home overseeing our daughter's studies, detached and uninvolved. A friend voiced her indignation. Quinn Dai already acts like the second lady boss. How can you stay so calm? I smiled. What's there to fear? It's just a low-cost way to manage subordinates. There's a term online that captures it precisely and aptly. It's called romantic co-optation. Just as I had finished dinner at home with my daughter, Julian was out at sea for team building with his team. My close friend Mandy Lynn's message notifications chimed rapidly. Over a dozen photos flooded in. A call followed immediately, the muffled sound of waves hitting the boat echoing through the receiver. Her voice was laced with anger. Dai, why didn't you come to the team building? That Quinn Dai is practically glued to old Julian. Lin Man's husband is a business partner of the company, and this team building event was jointly organized by both firms. As for the photos, I've seen them on Quinn Dai's social feed. There's one that's particularly glaring. On the deck, under the vast sky and sea, Quinn Dai wore a sheer, bright yellow bikini with minimal fabric that perfectly accentuated the curves she took pride in. She clung tightly to Julian Zhu's arm while he wrapped his around her waist, their skin pressed close. Holding champagne, she smiled brilliantly and unabashedly. In almost every photo, she and Julian Zhu stood front and center. Her posture was unmistakably that of the lady of the house. She didn't even bother to restrict the visibility or set it for my eyes only. Thus, the comments were uniformly filled with flattery and wishes, all of which were laid bare for me to see clearly. Yet, beneath these brazen, almost provocative photos, she selectively replied to a few comments that hailed her as the boss's wife or praised them as a perfect match. With feigned modesty, "Oh my, don't say such things. Sister Sue would be upset if she saw this. They're enjoying sea breezes and champagne over there, while I'm here, coinciding with the nanny's day off. I have to handle all sorts of chores myself. I was peeling an orange for my daughter Tanya Sue to eat after dinner. Juice splattered, and a sharp tang seeped under my fingernails. At the same time, a message from Quinn Dai popped up on the screen. She sent 2 photos. One was a close-up shot, the other a screenshot of a social feed comment section, pretending to explain. Though clearly anxious, I wouldn't miss it. Sister Sue, the sea wind was so strong. President Zhu just steadied me, so I wouldn't stumble. Don't overthink it. After seeing the photos, Julian Zhu also messaged with the same explanation. I smiled, replying, "It's fine. Stay safe." Handing a segment of orange to my lips, I answered Lin Man in an even tone. "Until Tanya starts university, I won't involve myself in company matters at all." She shrilly protested on my behalf. "Not involve yourself? She's already acting like the second lady boss. I remember she was just your little assistant back then. Now she's practically climbing into your husband's bed, and you're just sitting there? She just returned to the country, so there are some things she isn't aware of yet. For example, Quinn Dai and Julian Zhu's relationship has been going on for over a decade." I let out a snore of laughter. Lin Man was exasperated by my lack of urgency. "You're laughing? She doesn't even see you as a threat." Diane Sue, she wasn't wrong. The shift in Quinn Dai's attitude toward me traced a clear, observable arc from the deference she showed when she first joined the company as my assistant, to the cautious probing after she took over my duties while I was on maternity leave. Then later, the level-eyed confidence after she helped Julian close several major projects. And finally, during my pregnancy, after my father passed and Julian took full control, her undisguised Victor's disregard for me. I wiped my hands, set the phone on the counter, and went back to slicing the apple on the cutting board. "Lin Man, tell me, what's the most efficient, lowest cost reward for a loyal, exceptionally capable subordinate? A promotion? A raise? Company shares?" "None of those," I said softly. "It's about giving her favoritism, making her feel special, so she willingly devotes everything to you, yet still believes she's the one gaining the advantage." Silence fell on the other end of the line. I leisurely wiped my hands clean, walked to the study to hand the fruit platter to Tanya Sue, who was doing her homework, closed the door, and continued. All of this happened with my tacit approval. From a corporate management perspective, it's the lowest cost way to control subordinates. It's just that Julian Zhu always believed that he was the one in control. I never imagined I would one day marry Julian Zhu, for no other reason than I simply didn't dare to dream it. Though we attended the same international high school in our teens, the financial gap between our families was anything but small. I still remember the Zhu family at their peak. In the land, scarcity H. The private driveway to their villa stretched an 8-minute drive. Their garden was over 10 times larger than my family's, complete with a dedicated area for raising blue peacocks. Celebrities and politicians came and went. My parents had to pull strings through multiple connections just to get an invitation to the Zhu family's house party. Julian Zhu was dazzlingly brilliant, while I was merely part of the background among his circle of classmates. But what rises high must fall hard. In our second year of high school, due to policy adjustments, the related industries faced strict investigations. The Zhu family's properties and funds were frozen overnight, and President Zhu was thrown behind bars. Former friends and associates scattered like birds and beasts. Not long after, Julian's mother also passed away from depression. Just when everyone was avoiding him like the plague, I sold the Kelly doll bag my aunt had given me for my 18th birthday, scraping together $300,000 to cover his tuition for studying abroad. He was astonished. I smiled and told him, I applied to the same university as you. From now on, we'll still be classmates. The unspoken meaning was that I could still help him in the future. But teenage boys have pride as vast as the sky, with red-rimmed eyes and a stiff neck. He said, I'll pay you back. After that, he borrowed money here and there, stubbornly working time to put himself through college. Oh, and he still managed to date me throughout it all. The year he graduated, he actually saved up 300,000 yuan and paid me back with interest. Unfortunately, after repaying the debt, Julian Zhu was left with nothing. He knew he wanted to marry me. My parents, of course, disagreed, but Julian was clever. Though his family had fallen from wealth, the taste and insight from his earlier privileged life remained. He knew how to appreciate wine, play golf, was impeccably polite in daily life, and shrewdly decisive in business. He secured several major clients for my father's company over drinks and card games. Eventually, my father relented and allowed us to marry, but he never relinquished control. Even when he fell ill, the company's reins stayed in my hands. He was like a shrewd landlord, treating Julian only as his most capable hired hand. The turning point came when I got pregnant. My father's health declined day by day, and our uncles eyed the Sue family's assets greedily. My severe pregnancy symptoms left me with little energy, forcing me to gradually hand over core projects to Julian Zhu. Julian's business acumen seemed innate. The projects he led brought unprecedented profit breakthroughs for the company. But the more outstanding he became, the more anxious my father grew. He demanded a guarantee that Julian could never shake the foundation of the Sue family. Thus, after our daughter Tanya Sue was born, Julian proactively suggested she take my surname, Sue. This was also the precondition my father had initially set as part of the exchange. I still remember, in the hospital, Julian holding our newborn daughter, speaking to me on the sickbed. His eyes held humiliation and ambition. The clarity of his youth was gone. Pale-faced, he said to me, Dai, I've gone this far for you and the Sue family. Your father should be at ease now. I understood. A man stripped of the right to pass on his surname would inevitably seek compensation elsewhere, in more money and more women. I gave him power, tacitly allowing him to cultivate his own loyalists. And Quinn Dai was precisely the one he personally promoted from an assistant position after that, until my father passed away when my daughter turned 7. The moment my father closed his eyes, a certain balance was completely shattered. Julian Zhu's era had begun, or rather, what he perceived to be his era. Over these years, I retreated behind the scenes, ostensibly to support my husband and raise our daughter. But in truth, I observed coldly from the sidelines. I watched as Julian Ju carried out sweeping reforms and steadily pushed Quinn Dai up to the high position of director. Quinn Dai was indeed capable. She was like a sharp blade tailor, made for Julian, pointing where he directed, striking without fail. She secured several critical domestic and international projects for the company, decisive at the negotiation table and socially adept at banquets. She was his most capable assistant, his most trusted comrade in arms, and his most intimate lover. Everyone in the company knew it. Everyone except me, Diane Su, the lady of the Su family, like a porcelain vase preserved from a bygone era, kept at home but left unattended. Lin Man's call merely pierced that thin veil of pretense everyone already saw through. All these years, every unusual fund transfer, every abnormal personnel change in the company had been sent to my private inbox weekly via encrypted emails. I hung up the phone and glanced at Tanya Su's focused silhouette in the study. Tanya Su's high school years were nearing their end. This also meant Diane Su's era was about to return. Shortly after my daughter graduated high school, the company's 30th anniversary celebration took place. Having retreated from the corporate world for years, I was long out of practice handling company affairs. Yet, on the night of the banquet, I decided to attend. The moment I stepped into the banquet hall on Julian Ju's arm, I knew tonight was Quinn Dai's stage. I wore a custom champagne gold gown, elegant yet distant, while Quinn Dai, in a midnight blue gown, perfectly echoed the hue of Julian Ju's tie, as if they were the ones who had carefully coordinated their attire. President Ju, Chairman Shun, and the others have been waiting for quite a while. She familiarly handed the drink to Julian Ju, almost ignoring my presence entirely. He gently patted my hand to reassure me, took the glass, and hastily instructed, "Find a place to sit for a while. I'll go greet them." Then he was led by Quinn Dai into the center of the clinking glasses and lively chatter. I was left standing alone. Soon, the surrounding whispers surged like a tide, undisguised and audible. Is that President Ju's wife? Somehow, her presence just doesn't compare to Director Dai's. Sure, keep it down. But honestly, look at Director Dai and President Ju standing together. Now, that's a perfect match. A true power couple. Yeah, I heard she's been out of the scene for ages. Even knowing President Ju favors Director Dai, she doesn't dare make a fuss. Of course, over the past 30 years, Director Dai has been by President Ju's side, building his empire for at least 15 of them. If I were a man, I'd choose Director Dai too. I wore a faint smile, pretending not to hear a word. Soon, a female in turn wearing a name tag approached with a wine glass. Her eyes filled with fervent admiration as she headed straight for Quinn Dai, only to be momentarily blocked by a passing guest right in front of me. She impatiently sidestepped, frowning when her gaze landed on me. "Madam, hello." Her tone carried a hint of condescending scrutiny. "This area is reserved for guests at the main table, to avoid disturbing Director Dai and the VIPs. It's best for unrelated individuals not to linger here." After speaking, she deliberately tilted her chin toward Quinn Dai's direction. The attempt to curry favor couldn't have been more obvious. Quinn Dai caught sight of the scene, the smile on her lips deepening. Yet she showed no intention of coming to my defense. Everyone around was waiting to see me embarrassed. Before I could speak, Julian Ju's assistant hurried over and said gravely, "Rachel Wong, this is President Ju's wife, Madame Su." The intern turned pale, then immediately bowed in apology. Julian Ju turned to look at me, signaling that he was aware and handling the situation. But if he hadn't deliberately avoided mentioning family and marriage in interviews over the past decade, and intentionally amplified Quinn Dai's presence within the company, how could I have been looked down upon to this extent? He walked straight to the main table, pulled out the chair beside him, and gestured for me to sit. Only then did I notice how bizarre the seating arrangement at the main table was. Julian Ju sat at the head, with Quinn Dai and me flanking him on either side, forming a stable yet awkward formation. He calmly unbuttoned his suit jacket and added somewhat unnaturally, "Don't overthink it. Quinn always shields me from drinking, so she's used to sitting by my side. When it came time for speeches, Quinn Dye, as a company veteran, led by example. She raised her glass to everyone, yet her gaze remained fixed on Julian Ju's face. Over the past decade, I've devoted all my youth and passion to this company. The one I wish to thank most is President Ju. Her voice trembled slightly, brimming with deep emotion. Thank you for sheltering me from storms and granting me boundless opportunities. All these years, the company has been my home, and President Ju has been my family. She bit down hard on those last two words. All eyes turned toward me like spotlights. I finally looked up, smiling at Quinn Dye as I spoke. Director Dye speaks so well. Julian and I have always considered you family. I paused, then shifted my tone, smiling even more deeply, just like how our whole family adores Machi. Over time, affection always grows. Don't you think? Quinn Dye's cheeks flushed slightly as she asked curiously. Machi? Which department is that in? Julian's assistant whispered softly. Machi is the ragdoll cat President Ju and his wife adopted. The color drained instantly from Quinn Dye's face. I raised my glass, lightly clinking it against hers. When we first picked her up, she was pitifully thin, always rubbing against people begging for food. Now, her fur's glossy. She's plump and sometimes even scratches the sofa, acting like she owns the place. The air seemed to freeze. The guests who had been whispering moments ago now wore expressions of sheer spectacle, wanting to laugh but not daring to. Julian Ju sharply turned his head, his tone uncharacteristically cold as he asked softly, Dai, must you embarrass her in such a setting? I tilted my head, feigning marital affection, and whispered word by word into his ear. You know, our daughter has graduated high school, or has over a decade of glory made you forget? Does the company bear the Ju name, or the Su name? Interruption point. I had never spoken harshly to him before. This was the first time. He was stunned by my bluntness. For our daughter to have a harmonious family atmosphere, without shattering her idealized view of her father, and to make Julian Ju believe my intention to return to family life was sincere enough. So he would work diligently. I had never pierced the illusion he diligently crafted for himself over more than a decade. Now, with just a gentle poke, Julian Ju froze, his face ashen as he asked, what do you mean by that? Nothing. Don't be nervous. I raised my voice. I'm just taking today's occasion to announce that next week, I will officially return to the company. I hope everyone present will offer their support. The moment the words fell, the room fell dead silent. Quinn Dye froze completely, as if doused with a bucket of ice water. 1 week later, I parachuted into the company as vice president. It was a lofty, sounding but hollow title, overseeing corporate culture, employee care, and some audit work. My father's old subordinates treated me with utmost respect. Those under Julian Ju's command maintained a polite distance. Everything was harmonious and peaceful, but this slow, boiling, frog tranquility wasn't what I wanted. So, I used the excuse that my daughter was about to study abroad, hoping she could enjoy these last few months of family time. This was a reason Julian Ju couldn't refuse. Julian Ju and I went everywhere together. I rode with him to work in the mornings and waited for him to finish before heading home in the evenings. Even when he worked overtime, I'd have my secretary order dinner and quietly review documents on his office sofa to keep him company. Quinn Dye had no chance to slip in between us. In her earlier years, when Quinn was deeply involved in projects and thriving, she enjoyed a period of popularity. Back then, I often came across interview clips of her being asked about marriage. Rather than being someone's wife, I prefer being the queen of my own life. Using the womb as a bargaining chip is the most pathetic thing a woman can do. My sense of security comes from the digits in my bank account, not a man's promises. Those interview snippets were edited into short videos and spread like wildfire across social media. Under her viral quotes, netizens piled on fervent praise and admiration. She speaks for all of us online. This is how we alpha women should live. Quinn is my life advisor. 10K plus likes. Now, this is what a truly empowered woman looks like. Broad, minded, confident, and utterly inspiring. President Dai is absolutely stunning. No wonder President Zhu always praises her in interviews. Who wouldn't be mesmerized? Don't talk nonsense. President Zhu has a wife, though I heard she's been out of the picture for ages. 20K plus. Seems like they've been drifting apart for a while. That first wife position is doomed. 60K plus. For a time, Quinn Dai was the center of attention. Her interview quotes became a mantra for countless women truly pursuing independent careers. As time passed, netizens even stopped using her name directly, bestowing upon her a weighty title, the textbook's strong female lead. But during this period, in the break room or hallway, I often caught glimpses of this strong female lead's face, slightly twisted with jealousy and resentment. The strong female lead seemed unable to hold back any longer. A few days later, several tough projects landed in my hands. Julian Zhu's intention behind this arrangement was clear without words. Keeping me busy would give Quinn Dai the chance to be alone with Julian Zhu. By handing me the difficult projects, Julian Zhu could finally watch me admit defeat as he wished. But this was only my beginning. A project meeting was scheduled in another city, and I had to lead the team on a business trip to Riverton City. When I went to Julian Zhu to sign the travel approval, Quinn Dai was also there. He looked up, his usually gentle face etched with concern. Are you sure you'll be all right handling this project alone? Before I could answer, Quinn Dai let out a light laugh. Leaning against the desk, she feigned concern in her tone. Why trouble yourself so much, Sister Sue? It's not like President Zhu can't afford to support you. She had clearly seen my sharp, capable side in the workplace before. But after years of basking in her own importance, she'd started to believe that after all this time away from my career, I was someone who needed Julian Zhu to provide for me. I didn't look at her, only smiled faintly. Julian certainly can support someone, but I prefer to support myself. I paused slightly, enunciating each word clearly. As Director Dai once said, how can a meal you beg for compare to one you earn yourself? Quinn Dai fell silent. Seeing Quinn Dai's attempt fall flat, Julian Zhu ultimately went ahead and signed the approval. After dinner in the evening, my daughter hugged my arm and whispered, Mom, how long will you be away on business? 3 days. She breathed a sigh of relief. That's not too bad. I thought it might be 3 months. Then you'd miss my school enrollment. I chuckled and tapped her nose. How could I miss it? For your enrollment, Mom has a big gift for you. What kind of big gift? I ruffled her hair. You'll find out when the time comes. To facilitate communication with the client, I checked into the J Hotel where the company's executives were staying. I targeted this project because I had a history with the person in charge. The negotiation went more smoothly than expected. Even before my return flight landed, sitters were sending me congratulatory messages. Back at the office, after submitting my 12,000 yuan accommodation invoice to the finance department, Young Lee, the new finance staff, unusually knocked on my office door twice. He looked troubled. Chairman Su, well, there's a new regulation recently issued to control costs. The accommodation standard for all executives on business trips cannot exceed 3,000 yuan per night. I looked at the scorching, hot invoice in his hand and understood perfectly. This was Quinn Dai's way of testing the waters. I didn't say a word, just nodded gently, seeing that I wasn't angry. Young Lee grew even more nervous and lowered his voice. Director Dai said the company must treat everyone equally. Rules are rules, and she hopes you can understand. Don't be nervous. I understand. I finally spoke, my voice calm and steady. I pulled out a stack of cash and pushed it, along with the invoice, toward Young Lee. Reimburse according to the regulation. I'll cover the extra amount myself. This matter must have put you in a difficult position. Young Lee froze. It seemed he hadn't expected the task that had him trembling with fear to go so smoothly. I picked up my coffee, leisurely blew on the steam, and spoke with a gentle gaze. Young people in the workplace often face many unavoidable situations. I can understand. Go back and report your task completed. When he looked up again, Young Lee's eyes held newfound gratitude. Thank you, Chairman Su. Young Lee fled the office, as if escaping. the sincerity in his thanks unmistakable. Quinn Dye wants to target me using the new regulations. But in this finance department, beneath the director are department managers, and beneath them are supervisors. Yet, for such a trivial matter, all these shrewd people pushed it down the line until they sent an intern to take the first blow. I originally thought that after over a decade at the company, Quinn Dye would have fiercely loyal subordinates. Now, it seems, not so much. A critical department, yet morale is unsteady. 4,000 yuan bought her an utterly terrible opening move. This deal was too cost-effective. I thought Quinn Dye might have some new tricks up her sleeve. Little did I expect that, after tasting success last time, she'd become obsessed with using reimbursement rules to make trouble for me. Later, I figured it out. It's not that she doesn't want to use other methods, but as CFO now, she's familiar and adept with this set of rules. So she enjoys prancing around in her comfort zone, using these petty tactics to annoy me. As of now, I've successfully closed 3 projects, made 3 business trips. The total advance payments and reimbursements I've covered are nearly 100,000 yuan. It's about time I decided to return the favor. Last week's client entertainment expenses went over the advance I was given. Among the reimbursement documents I submitted, there were a few informal receipts. Just as expected, after waiting half a month, the reimbursement still hadn't come through. In the afternoon, when the office was at its busiest, I went to the finance department. The manager in charge, surnamed Song, looked unfamiliar. I didn't hold back and got straight to the point. Manager Song, that reimbursement for my trip to Country K, less than 50,000 yuan in total, has been held up for almost a month. He froze for a moment, then just smiled evasively. I'm quite busy at the moment. I'm busy too. I cut him off. But it doesn't make sense to earn money for the company while paying out of my own pocket, right? It seems we're not familiar enough for there to be any grudge between us. Are we? Or perhaps, Manager Song, are you doing this to vent someone else's anger? I asked bluntly, my gaze clear and innocent. Manager Song immediately grew tense, his face a mask of unspoken hardship. Oh, how could that be? The finance department fell silent in an instant. No one looked up, but every ear was perked. Moments later, Quinn Dye arrived in her high heels. She wore a Hermes shawl, arms crossed, poised and composed. She must have been waiting for this moment too. Quinn Dye held my receipts with a knife. Edge smile. Chairman Su, perhaps you've been away from work too long to understand. No letterhead, no seal. Hard to verify authenticity. Finance can't process this. Her words made it seem like I was being unreasonable. That's not what I was told before the business trip. The reimbursement policy clearly allows cash expenses for overseas hospitality, and informal receipts are permitted under special circumstances. She met my gaze directly. As you said, that was before the trip. The policy was revised the week you were away. It went through committee approval. She deliberately slowed her pace. Nowadays, informal receipts are hard to verify. They're just not acceptable anymore. I shot back. So you're saying, to prove the authenticity of these receipts, I should go register a company for the local roast suckling pig chef and get a seal carved? There's a limit to how far you can push false accusations, isn't there? Quinn Dye crossed her arms, tilted her head, scoffed mockingly in my ear, then whispered, Chairman Su, no use struggling. Those accusing you already know exactly how wronged you are. I shifted the tone and retorted, oh, so it's not like everyone was hoping I'd secure the project anymore? She laughed as if hearing a joke. Chairman Su, that was the company giving you a chance. If you're unwilling, plenty of others are ready to step in. Just the line I was waiting for. Fine. I straightened up and looked at her. Director Dye, go find someone willing then. The Country K project is up for bidding next week, and all the materials are with me. Quinn Dye's expression instantly shifted. She finally realized those non-compliant receipts were bait I deliberately laid out. She instinctively glanced around, suddenly realizing why I had come straight to the finance department instead of her office. Right now, many eyes were watching this farce unfold. After a moment of silence, She tried to backtrack. These are two separate matters. How are they separate? You just implied I'm off this project. I didn't give her an out. Fine, I'll forego the reimbursement. Consider it a treat for all the shareholders. As for the client and project in Country K, you can find someone else. With that, I turned and left. The reason the Country K project had stalled for so many years wasn't complicated. It was simply because my father passed away, and the cooperation renewal hit a wall. The total value of this project ran into 9 figures. If Julian Zhu dared say he didn't want this lucrative deal, the old guard would drown him in scorn the very next day. Over the years, many had tried. Even Julian himself had repeatedly hit dead ends. A few years back, Quindai camped in Country K with a team for a month and still couldn't even get a meeting with the partner's lead. If I sealed the deal, the shareholders would be thrilled. But given Quindai's strong-willed nature, she must have been seething with discontent inside. I returned to my office, settling comfortably into my chair to await further developments. Not long after, Julian Zhu entered my office. Without looking up, I kept a cold expression while tapping away at the keyboard. I'm busy. No time. Julian asked with a smile. What are you busy with? Minesweeper. Oh, what kind of advanced Minesweeper requires a keyboard? His tone carried a hint of teasing. Oops, I got too carried away with my glee. I should have been clicking the mouse just now. Julian asked. Chairman Su, got a moment to spare for a chat. I stopped what I was doing and looked at him. What do you want to talk about? Julian took my hand and stroked it. Quindai came to me, crying her eyes out. Was it really worth it? Just for a few $1,000? If you make her suffer in the finance department, how will she ever hold her head up in front of her subordinates again? I withdrew my hand and pulled out a wet wipe. Wiping each finger meticulously, I said coldly, is that how this should be calculated? Also, is this the main point of your visit? He clearly came for the project. Julian Zhu clasped his hands in apology. My mistake. In that case, the Country K project will still be handled by you. As for the reimbursement, 3 days. No, within 2 days. It will definitely be processed. All right, fine, but Quindai must apologize to me. I got the apology from Quindai, as I wished. The Country K project was also a great success. From this, I gained a group of devoted followers, including directors and shareholders who previously didn't have faith in me. At the celebration banquet, Julian Zhu was brimming with pride and satisfaction. After several rounds of drinks, he pulled me aside. Last time, Quindai was wronged, but it was for the good of the company. His words carried an underlying meaning. The follow-up work for the K project is heavy. Since Quindai has experience, why not let her join the project team to help share the load? I swirled my wine glass, the crimson liquid tracing an arc along its inner wall. Since when does my project team need her to share the burden? Chairman Su, think bigger. Julian Zhu patted my shoulder. It's all for the company. Having an extra name on the credit sheet looks better, doesn't it? To put it bluntly, she just wants to swoop in and claim the rewards. Splitting half the credit for Project K with Quindai would both placate her and balance my prominence in the company. Aside from their personal relationship, his concern for Quindai's feelings could only mean one thing. She holds quite a few of his secrets. In that case, I'll start with her. I let out a cold laugh and set the glass down heavily. She can join. Fine, but all decisions are mine alone. She can listen, she can execute, but she gets no say. Julian Zhu immediately broke into a smile. Of course. 3 days later, Quindai swiftly moved into Project K's office area. Such efficiency in executive appointments. I couldn't help but acknowledge that Julian Zhu, and now Quindai, truly wield significant influence. She patrolled the area like a hostess, chin slightly raised, her eyes brimming with unconcealed pride. I ignored her show of dominance. A week later, at the group's strategy meeting, I proposed a new project, the comprehensive bidding case for Westside Tech Park. It was a coveted prize. Whoever secured it would be this year's top performer. Everyone's eyes lit up. I looked at Quindai and smiled. Director Dai is exceptionally capable. This new project will be entirely under your responsibility. Quinn Dye's smile froze on her face. She had intended to seize the credit for wrapping up Project K. This was unexpected. Our relationship hadn't improved to the point of handing over a juicy piece of meat to each other. She had doubts but couldn't figure out what game I was playing. Yet, in front of everyone, as I handed her the high praise, she accepted it with a smile. All right, thank you for your trust, Chairman Sue. She agreed through gritted teeth. She thought I just wanted to sideline her from Project K. She didn't know the real show had just begun. The must-win Tech Park project was lost by Quinn Dye. The reason was that another company offered a higher bid. This wouldn't normally be a problem, but their offer was only 0.3% higher than ours. The price advantage was slim, yet precise. This indicated that the company's bidding information was likely leaked. The prime suspect was Quinn Dye. And what was she thinking sitting there? She was probably thinking she hadn't done it. Yet only she and Julian Zhu had known the proposal's quote from start to finish. She was also well aware, in this marriage of convenience, that Julian Zhu was fighting me for management control. Her bond with him was nearly unbreakable, and he wouldn't cut off his own arm at a critical moment. She looked at Julian Zhu, but didn't receive the same gaze in return. What awaited her was questioning from the board and auditors. Oh, and I've also hired 2 professional lawyers. After the audit department manager completed the assigned inquiry process, the lawyer asked clearly, Miss Quinn Dye, have you recently had any private contact with personnel from rival companies? Quinn began to tense up, clenching her fists as she prepared to deny it. But then she looked up and saw me sitting opposite her, arms crossed, smiling calmly. She understood. She finally figured it out. Why I had so generously handed her this opportunity. Why her ex-boyfriend, who worked at the rival company's project team, had suddenly reached out to her. Why Nathan, had held her hand, saying he could soon afford a house, begging her to get back together. Nathan could indeed afford a house now. The cost was ruining her future. 1 week before the bidding began, I had Lin Man track down Nathan. The man initially thought Quinn had broken up with him because he couldn't afford a house in H City. Lin Man showed him the property under Quinn's name. One of the sets was purchased even before the two had broken up. Nathan, half convinced and half doubting, confronted Quinn Dye. That confrontation cost Quinn Dye everything. Quinn Dye lifted her eyes and met my gaze for a long moment before speaking calmly. Yes, there was. A faint stir rippled through the conference room. I curved the corner of my mouth. She was clever. She knew that since I had made my move, I must have come fully prepared. She had no choice but to admit defeat. She attempted one last struggle. I did meet with Mr. Nya from the other project team, but that was purely a private date. Our conversation never touched on any of the company's business matters. I have never compromised the company's interests. Understood. To confirm, is this the entirety of your statement? Yes, the audit manager then announced. Given the significant project amount and complex circumstances, you are hereby suspended pending investigation. Please remain reachable, and the company reserves the right to pursue legal action as warranted. Fine, she swayed as she stood up. May I leave now? Everyone instinctively turned their gaze toward Julian Zhu. President Zhu? She asked. Julian, who had remained silent all along, nodded woodenly. When Julian and I returned to his office, Quinn Dye was also there. The usually sharp and efficient career woman now had red-rimmed eyes, with a few stray strands of hair clinging messily to her tear-streaked face. Seeing Julian, she seemed to clutch at a lifeline, completely ignoring my presence as she rushed forward with reddened eyes. I didn't do it. I don't know how it was leaked. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Julian, you believe me, don't you? Julian remained silent. She still tried to explain. I've always kept the proposal in the safe, never left it lying around. Suddenly, she turned to me, forcing herself to regain composure. Right now, the most urgent thing is to find out who accessed the safe and who stole a look at the proposal. She wiped away her tears, stepped closer to me, and said with fierce determination, someone must have done this with ulterior motives. I'll check the surveillance right now. I'll investigate immediately. She turned to rush out. Stop investigating. Julian Jew suddenly spoke, his voice decisive. Quindai froze in place. She asked in a trembling voice, "What's wrong? Even you don't believe I was wronged?" I calmly replied, "He believes you." She whipped her head around. I gave a light laugh and whispered, "Because the one who wronged you knows better than anyone how unfairly you've been treated." These words, like an invisible needle, instantly pierced through Quindai's intense emotions. Her sobbing and questioning came to an abrupt halt. She must have remembered. Not long ago, in the finance department, she had said the same words to me. So that's how it is. So my forbearance that day wasn't weakness. It was keeping score. So today was a carefully orchestrated siege of my own making. As if realizing something, she turned and demanded of Julian Jew, "Julian, what does she mean? Say something." Julian Jew's silence made her mind jump to the most improbable answer. "It wasn't you, Julian." She kept shaking his arm. "It couldn't have been you, right?" The man remained silent. Of course he couldn't say anything. How could he tell Quindai that just days ago, after I informed him about Quinn meeting her ex-boyfriend, my lawyer sat in his office, presenting clear evidence of every fund transfer and the shell company he and Quinn had set up through overseas channels. Even a drafted indictment for embezzlement and commercial espionage was included. The choice I gave him was simple: either sacrifice the pawn to save the king, allowing him to walk away unscathed, or let both sides perish, with him and Quinn facing imprisonment together, faced with over a decade of affection and readily attainable wealth. He hesitated for only 3 seconds. "Julian, how could you do this? What good does this bring you? Didn't you say we could get married in just a few more years?" Julian Jew lowered his gaze with a scornful laugh. Now that I knew everything, he no longer needed to hide anything from me. He openly turned the tables. "If you hadn't been entangled with your ex-boyfriend before meeting him, didn't you know he was from the project team of the rival company?" I did. Quindai knew it all too well. How clever she was. So clever. She was even a bit arrogant. So, to break down Quinn's defenses, Nathan used the pretense of helping her secure the project as their date's purpose. Quinn thought Nathan still couldn't forget her. By revealing a little, maybe she could lower the project's costs even further. After all, before taking on this project, she was the finance director. Overspending the company's money would pain her too. Besides, everyone knew this was a project I'd handed to her. Succeeding wouldn't earn her much credit. But if she could control costs beyond expectations, she could at least make the victory more impressive and regain some ground with me. What she didn't expect, however, was that his true intentions lay elsewhere. Quindai worked so hard, dedicating herself tirelessly to the company. For Julian Jew, she remained unmarried for years. But today, it was all ruined. "Stop struggling." With those words, Julian Jew left. But clearly, Quindai had no intention of leaving. She turned her hostility toward me again, her voice sharp with agitation. "Diane Sue, have you no shame? Is playing pretend as a couple fun? There's clearly no love left. So why are you still clinging to the title of wife?" She took a step forward, brimming with resentment and venom. "You were perfectly fine staying at home. Why did you have to come back? Does targeting me make you feel accomplished? But let me tell you, even if I leave, there will be countless Quindais. Julian will never love you again." I watched her quietly until she was hoarse from shouting, then slowly shook my head and offered a faint, almost pitying smile. A sense of achievement in dealing with you. I let out a light laugh, picked up the long, cold coffee on the table, and gently swirled it. "Quinn, you overestimate yourself and underestimate me." My voice was soft, yet it struck her heart like a hammer. "I returned to the company, only to reclaim what is rightfully mine, and you were never my target." I stood up, walked over to her, and met her gaze calmly. "You might not believe it, but like my father, I value talent. I gave you 12 years to shine in this company. Did you really think I was unaware of your shady dealings with Julian?" I took a step forward, lowered my voice, my breath almost brushing against her ear. "Your petty schemes meant nothing to me. I tolerated them because you had value. I tolerated Julian's indiscretions outside because he, too, had value to the company. The profits you both generated for the company far outweighed the minor displeasure you caused me. We could have coexisted peacefully until you tried to assert your dominance and act like the lady of the house. You were the one who provoked me first. I watched her pupils contract sharply, then took a satisfying step back, my tone laced with just the right amount of pity. So, though it pains me, I still have to let you go. She seemed drained of all strength, yet still clung to her last shred of dignity. Her lips quivered as she spat out the words firmly. You don't need to make me leave. I'll resign on my own. It's all the better that you have such awareness. I nodded, sat back in my seat, interlaced my fingers, and assumed a negotiating posture. But before you go, there's an account we need to settle. I pulled open the drawer and slid a document in front of her. Everything Julian Ju bought for you over the years, and what you took from the company by abusing your position, it all needs to be returned. She stared wide, eyed in shock, as if hearing a fairy tale. What are you talking about? What money? I've worked diligently, earned my own keep, and spent it openly and honestly. Open and above board. I leaned forward slightly, enunciating each word. Oh? Then do you know that after my father passed away, all the shares Julian Ju held were merely held in trust? Her expression froze. He is the nominal majority shareholder, seemingly in control of management, but in reality only draws a fixed salary each year. Watching the shock on her face, clearly, she didn't know. A flat in Jiangwan, H City, he'd have to work 20 years to afford it. Yet he bought 3 for you. Quinn Dai's face began to pale, her lips trembling soundlessly. I gave her no chance to catch her breath. Continuing, you used overseas market channels to create a slick shell company. Over the past 3 years, you funneled at least 9 figures out. Why don't you help me do the math? Is this reasonable? Is this legal? You've been CFO for so many years. You know best, don't you? She never imagined that the carefully planned escape route and the love nest and treasury they'd painstakingly built for their new life were, in my eyes, nothing but transparent sandcastles. She wanted to defend herself, but not a single word could escape her lips. I added leisurely, my tone is light, as if discussing the weather. Oh, don't worry, though they're all marital assets. I'm not completely unreasonable. Just return the major items. Jewelry and bags worth less than 10,000 yuan can be kept. Consider it severance pay for your hard work over the past decade. Also, I looked at her one last time, my smile gentle but my words laced with venom. Don't even think about using some petty leverage to threaten him or me. You might just end up trapping yourself. I saw it clearly. The color drained from her face inch by inch, until only ashen pallor remained. On the day of my daughter's coming, of age, ceremony, in Julian Ju's presence, I formally transferred the shares reserved for Tanya Su in my father's will to her name. At the restaurant, Tanya Su raised her juice glass, her eyes curving into joyful crescents as she smiled. Thank you, Mom. I smiled and gently clinked my glass against hers. You should thank Dad too. He's worked hard holding on to your shares all these years. I enunciated those 2 words with deliberate clarity. Tanya Su immediately understood, turning to Julian Ju with a sweet smile. Thank you, Dad, and please continue managing the company well for me until I officially take over. The gentle sunlight fell on her face, painting a picture of a warm, perfect family of 3 to outsiders. The only flaw was Julian Ju's smile, uglier than a grimace. He stiffly tugged at the corner of his mouth, set down his cutlery, and excused himself to the restroom. Soon after, my phone vibrated with a message from him. Come out for a moment. I stood up and found him at the end of the corridor. He leaned despondently against the cold wall, head tilted back. The once confident face now bore only brokenness and resignation. Quinn Dai is gone. The shares transferred. Management authority reclaimed. Even my private funds are wiped out. He laughed mockingly, turned to look at me, and spoke in a hoarse voice. Diane Su, just give it to me straight. Is the next step divorce? During this period after the incident, I remained gentle and polite toward him. no different from the Diane Sue of before. He, however, grew unaccustomed to it. He turned his head to look at me. His eyes were shattered and helpless, mingled with countless emotions, making him appear somewhat disheveled. It inexplicably reminded me of that red-eyed, yet unbowed young man from the year the Jew family went bankrupt. The corridor buzzed with passers-by under the hazy lights. Just as I was about to speak, an uninvited guest stumbled in. Quindi, supporting her lower abdomen, gazed tearfully at Julian Jew, as if clutching her last lifeline. "Julian," she announced tremulously, as if ready for one final gamble, "I'm pregnant." Julian Jew's eyes widened in disbelief. "What did you say?" He thought he must have misheard. I feigned surprise as I looked at Julian Jew, though the corner of my mouth lifted in an almost imperceptible curve, my voice clear. "Is this the reason you want to divorce me, darling?" A flicker of delight instantly flashed in Quindi's eyes. Julian Jew shook his head in confusion. "No, I just found out myself. I thought you wanted to divorce me to raise someone else's child with her." "What do you mean, someone else's child?" "Julian, this is your child. I haven't been with anyone else. And you never use protection. How can you deny him?" Quinn shook him so hard his head wobbled, leaving him momentarily speechless. I couldn't help but burst out laughing, breaking the absurd stalemate. "Oh my God, Julian, what's wrong with you? You didn't even tell her you had a vasectomy long ago, causing such a misunderstanding, making Miss Di search everywhere for the child's father. How difficult for her. You really have no heart." "That's right. Back when I gave birth to Tanya Sue, Julian Jew did two things to ease my father's concerns. One was to have the child take my surname. The other was to get a vasectomy, the irreversible kind, because, at that time, he loved me, and thought I loved him deeply too." As soon as my words fell, the surprise, hope, and madness on Quindi's face shattered into utter blankness. She swayed unsteadily, all her emotions finally erupting into a hysterical scream, whether cursing him or herself. No one could tell. You're utterly despicable. Julian Jew wants a divorce." He thought that after Quindi laid bare all the scandals, divorce would be the final judgment I'd deliver to him. He was mistaken. Divorce is out of the question. The freedom Julian Jew desires, I cannot grant him. Divorce would mean he'd take a share of the Sue family's assets. It might even sway public opinion. Besides, my father invested years in grooming him. It took my father a long time to polish a rough gem into what he is now. A Julian Jew who knows all the Sue family's operations, masters the rules of the business world, and can create maximum value for the Sue family. This masterpiece has just been polished to perfection. How could I possibly let it go so easily? The price for his betrayal isn't losing me. It's working for me and my daughter, the sole heir of the Sue family, forever and always, using the rest of his life to repay his past ambition and greed. Besides, Tanya Sue isn't married yet. My daughter is the future I've poured all my heart and soul into. Her life resume must be flawless. Her family background unshakable. I won't allow her to have to explain coming from a broken single parent home when she meets a boy she likes in the future. I won't allow anyone to use labels like parents divorced to speculate about her character or attack her vulnerabilities. What I'll give her is a solid, complete, and happy family. I'll bear the unhappy parts for her. Her father will always be Julian Jew, a powerhouse in the business world, and a loving, caring presence at home for her. Both parents devoted wholeheartedly only to her. Only for her. My mother, who was enjoying the sun and beaches in Bora Bora, heard about this farce and called me. I advised you back then, but you wouldn't listen. You insisted on choosing Julian Jew. If you'd pick someone from a similar background, wouldn't all this have been avoided? I gazed out the window. The sunlight was just right, the breeze gentle. I laughed. Mom, how many what-ifs can there be in life? Who made it so that Dad and I only wanted to keep the family fortune in the Sue family's hands. Now it's perfect. I just date him, have a child with him, and he'll work tirelessly for the Sue family forever. Silence fell on the other end of the line. I stroked my daughter's photo on my phone and added softly, "Besides, men are all pretty much the same. Since I had to choose one anyway, of course I'd pick one pleasing to the eye. Otherwise, how could my Tian have such a beautiful face?" Extra story. Time is the most skillful makeup artist. It can heal the deepest wounds and conceal the ugliest truths. 5 years have passed since that confrontation that nearly nailed me to the pillar of shame. In these 5 years, I went from being the master of the company back to a high-level employee. Diane Sue did not divorce me. She simply imprisoned me in this gilded cage called family in a more dignified manner. I still live in the top-tier villa district of City H, drive the latest luxury car. The Patek Philippe on my wrist is replaced every year. But none of the above is truly me. In every public setting, Diane Sue would link arms with me, smiling gracefully and properly. We remain the picture, perfect, devoted couple in the eyes of outsiders. But only I know that it's all a facade, because Diane Sue continued the habit of sleeping in separate beds from me. At least there was Quindi before. Although I'm not young anymore, but as a man, I still have needs. My insomnia has grown increasingly severe, to the point that every time I feel unbearably restless, I replay the past endlessly in the dead of night, trying to figure out exactly where I went wrong. Perhaps from the very beginning, I underestimated Diane Sue's forbearance and cunning. I thought that after over a decade of being a homemaker, her edges had been smoothed away, turning her into a harmless piece of porcelain only concerned with her daughter's grades and afternoon tea snacks. I was wrong. She isn't porcelain. She's a sword hidden in its sheath. And I handed her the reason to draw it myself. And now, that sword has another wielder. Our daughter, Tanya Sue, graduated with top honors from the Ivy League and joined the company from the ground up. Everyone knows it's just a transitional phase. Diane is paving the way for her heir in the safest manner possible. Tanya resembles her mother greatly, especially in her eyes, always carrying a faint smile, yet impossible to see through. But she also possesses a youthful energy and approachability that Diane lacks. She would cling to my arm, acting cute, sweetly calling me dad, and asking for my advice on project-related matters. For a moment, I even fell into an illusion. Perhaps I could still reclaim a shred of dignity and worth as a father through my daughter. I began paying closer attention to her, not just at work, but in her personal life as well. I selfishly believed this was a father's care for his daughter, until that day, when I saw my own reflection from the past. Tanya Sue's first project was the company's newly developed smart home ecosystem. For this project, she assembled a remarkably young team. It was filled with technical geniuses she'd poached from top universities and rival companies. 2 of them stood out the most. One was Zach Lynn, a PhD in computer science from a top domestic university, exceptionally gifted in algorithms, though somewhat introverted and socially awkward. The other was Charlie Chun, a project manager who returned from Silicon Valley, sunny, outgoing, and exceptionally skilled at resource integration and team collaboration. I noticed Tanya paid special attention to these 2 young men. That afternoon, I passed by the break room. Through the glass partition, Tanya Sue was seen handing a cup of hand-brewed coffee to Zach Lynn. She tilted her head, listening intently and gently as Zach nervously reported technical challenges. "Zach, I know this model is difficult." Her voice was as soft as a feather. "But I believe you can make it happen. Don't mind what others say. To me, you are the most special. You understand what I mean, right?" Zach's face flushed instantly, and a remarkable light sparked in his previously dim eyes. He nodded firmly, clutching his laptop like a knight bestowed with a medal, and hurried away. I stood there, an indescribable sense of familiarity washing over me. That look, that favoritism, those words, "You are the most special." It felt like someone had said them to me before. 2 days later, the company held its quarterly team building at a resort in the suburbs. By the bonfire after the dinner, I witnessed a similar scene again. This time, the target was Charlie Chun. He seemed somewhat dejected over an issue with a supplier. Sitting alone in a corner, Tanya Sue carried 2 glasses of wine over and sat beside him. "What's wrong? Looking so glum?" she teased lightly, A little setback and you're already defeated? Charlie Chin smiled bitterly. Supervisor Sue. This time it was my mishandling. No, Tanya Sue shook her head, her gaze exceptionally sincere in the flickering firelight. You're the one most responsible for the project's current progress. In my heart, no one could ever take your place. This team can't do without you. Neither can I. She clinked her glass against Charlie's and tossed it back in one go. Charlie stared at her, dumbfounded, the gloom in his eyes completely vanishing, replaced by a complex mix of gratitude, admiration, and something like affection. My heart sank abruptly. I finally understood where that sense of familiarity came from. Back then, I used the very same tactics on Quindai. I would praise her exceptional abilities in front of everyone, claiming no one could match her. I would offer the most heartfelt comfort when she was down, telling her how important she was to me. I made her feel like she was the only one. I even indulged her in seeing herself as the irreplaceable second lady boss. So she willingly charged into battle for me, devoting her entire youth. In the Ming and Qing dynasties, embroidery workshop owners took concubines, capable concubines, using sex and emotions to manipulate women, even strong ones. I always thought this was my clever, low-cost method of managing subordinates. But now, watching my daughter wield the same techniques with such skill, I suddenly felt a bone, chilling cold. Where did she learn this? One weekend afternoon, I left a dull banquet early and returned home to a quiet villa. The study door was ajar, and inside, I heard Diane Sue and Tanya Sue conversing. Tanya, both Zachlin and Charlie Chen are rare talents. It was Diane Sue's voice, carrying a hint of warning, but doing it this way. Aren't you? Playing with fire? Immediately followed by Tanya Sue's crisp, slightly sly laughter. Mom, don't worry, I know my limits. She paused, then said something that struck me like a thunderbolt. Isn't this the same trick you used on Dad back in the day? You have to make them feel special, like they're the favorite. So they'll willingly work for me and fight for the company as if it were their own. Work for me. Those two words pierced my eardrums like red, hot steel needles. With a crash, something in my mind snapped completely. All the pieces suddenly fell into place. Diane Sue selling the bag her aunt gave her to scrape together money for my tuition. The seemingly touched, but actually knowing smile in her eyes when I said I'd pay her back. Her father's endless obstructions, and her seemingly reluctant surrender of power after we married. She retreated behind the scenes, silently condoning everything between me and Quindai, letting me believe I had finally broken free from restraints and gained control. And Quinn, that woman I once thought I had wrapped around my finger, the favoritism I showed her, the future I promised her, I made her feel like a winner, all to secure her loyalty and competence. As for the photos, only at this moment did it dawn on me. Perhaps all of this started from the moment she approached me, or from when my father-in-law agreed to let her marry me, yet forced me to relinquish certain terms by suppressing me, or from when the shares in the will were merely held in trust for his daughter. On the vast chessboard constructed by Diane Sue and her father, Quindai and I are fundamentally the same kind of people. Diane Sue tolerated Quinn's presence not out of generosity, nor out of weakness. She was merely like an owner watching her most capable hound while raising a new pup. As long as they brought back prey, the master never cared how they competed for favor in the nest. I thought I had given Quindai the illusion of becoming the second lady boss. But I didn't realize that I myself was living in an even grander illusion of being the master. And for that, I worked diligently for the Sue family for half my life. Leaning against the cold wall, I slowly slid down to sit on the floor. In the full-length mirror at the end of the hallway, a well-dressed man with a pale face was reflected. That expensive suit now looked like an utterly ridiculous costume. I am not Julian Zhu. I am just another Quindai of the Sue family.